Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called The Cottage in Melody Lane, a ghost story by Harry Riley. The nightmare of Melody Lane began about 9 months ago, and it has been terrorising us daily ever since. Even my laptop computer has been infected with strange unwanted pop-ups cropping up all the time, and always with the same message: visit the blind tree. But which tree and where? It didn't say. It is probably a local public house, and all this happened because I was tired and lazy and couldn't be bothered to change. But let me explain. My name is Martin Failsworth. After living and working amongst the crowded streets of London for a decade or more, my wife and I and Jimmy, our young son, were all set for a complete life change. We had decided that we could live and work in the country just as well as in the town. Jane did not want to leave Jimmy with a nanny, and I was earning enough from my career as an up-and-coming television soap star to keep us going. Our house value had rocketed tremendously, and so we chose to go further north and to capitalise on the incredibly low prices of property up there. I would be happy to commute to Manchester or London as the work dictated. We scoured the houses for sale market and spotted a glorious bargain in the village of Lower Crutchley, a period cottage set in 2 acres of garden with unsport views over open countryside, plenty of room for Jimmy to play in safety. Our new dwelling was really old, having been originally built 2 centuries earlier. It was all old beams and quaint doorways, with an inglenook fireplace. The sort of cottage we'd dreamed about, but had never expected to own. We'd been living there for about 3 weeks, and I'd just returned home after a gruelling session at the studios. I was whacked, and had taken the train home in a rush to be back with my family, without bothering to change out of my television character clothes. I was dressed as a vicar, complete with dog collar and a silly cloak. I never gave this garb a second thought, as it was normal for me to spend many hours of my working day dressed in character. As I sauntered up the drive, gleefully anticipating my welcome home, I felt a strangeness in the air. However, I shrugged it off. I was tired, and of course my welcome was just as expected. Nothing was wrong. I made Jane laugh as I explained how my churchman's gear had created quite a bit of interest in the village as I alighted from the train. Several people had doffed their hats to me, and I returned their compliments with my interpretation of a blessing as I passed them by. But that night it all started. We had gone to bed early and were enjoying the noisy silence which you only hear in the country. The old house was settling down, and the timbers were creaking as the heat of the day departed. We had drifted off to sleep and had been in bed for about an hour when we both awoke suddenly and sat bolt upright. The room lights, which had been switched off, were back on again, all by themselves. We looked at one another, and as we did so the lights went out. We hardly dared speak, it was so strange. And then Jane whispered, "Did you hear that?" A muffled thumping sound was coming from the wall behind the bed, as if someone or something was trying to force their way into the room. It was the solid outer wall of the building. The lights came on, and then just as suddenly went out again. A water jug on the dressing table leapt up and shot across the room, crashing against the wall and smashing into pieces on the floor. We jumped out of bed in alarm. What was happening? Was this the start of an earth tremor? Neither of us are superstitious. We know there must be a logical reason for everything. But in the night, in a very old house, your imagination can take hold and lure you into the darkest realms of fantasy. We knew the house was locked up safely from intruders, and we had set the newly installed alarm OK. I got up, switched on the light, and checked in Jimmy's room. He was sound asleep. We couldn't figure it out. We lay there dreading further incidents and resolving to clear the shattered pottery up in the morning. Needless to say, we slept late. Daylight came, and with it a grateful sense of release from the night's terror. The same bangings occurred nightly after this, and at about the same time, in the early hours, after being in bed for a short time, it started again. And then there was only the rustling of the wind through the trees, with no more disturbances. To be on the safe side, we removed all pottery. But Jane got a slight cut from some flying glass when a picture frame inexplicably fell off from the far side of the bedroom wall. We would drift off afterwards into a very unsettled sleep, and later awake feeling drained. And then one tea time, as I returned home again, Jane met me at the door with a worried frown on her face. "Come in quickly," she hissed. I dashed up the stairs after her, to the back bedroom, where she stood gazing out through the window. "Look, there, out towards the burnt old oak tree at the perimeter fence." She pointed with a trembling finger. "Do you see him? He's been standing there all day, leaning against a tree and just staring at our house." I could see a fellow where she said. He looked about average height, 30ish, with unruly hair, a sort of vagabond or farm labourer chap, with a thick woolen jacket. Green trousers were gathered around his waist with a piece of rope, and a red kerchief was tied loosely around his sturdy neck. "Leave it to me," I said. "I'll go and see what his game is." I ran down the stairs and out through the door again, and was soon at the fence, quite breathless. But the man had gone. I scanned around for him, but the surrounding fields were empty, and I concluded he must have bolted down the bridleway as soon as he saw me coming. "I don't think he'll be back," I assured her. "He's obviously a village layabout, just checking to see if there is a woman living here alone." I kissed her cheek and poured us both a stiff drink. "I'll ring the local bobbies and ask them to make a check on him. Probably just some yob. They will most likely have him on file. Don't worry. Promise me you'll ring me at work tomorrow right away if he comes back." She nodded doubtfully. I rang Toddlington police station, which served us, as the female receptionist put me through to the duty man after an annoyingly long wait. Sergeant Barnsley took my call. I explained we were new to Lower Crutchley, recently moved into the old cottage on Melody Lane. "Yes, I'm familiar with the place," he answered. "What can I do for you?" I made my complaint, giving him a full description of the stranger and adding, "He scarpered when I went for him." But he looked a bit old-fashioned. He hesitated before replying to my request for him to apprehend the man for loitering, and for scaring a young woman almost out of her wits. "Surely you can't have more important things to do in a quiet spot like this," I insisted. Again he was hesitant. "Look, let me come and have a chat with you first," he said. "Things may not be as simple as you might think. You did say he was about 30 and was wearing a red kerchief." I confirmed this. And he said he would be around to see us in about an hour, after his shift had ended. Sergeant Barnsley was a slim, dour-faced man in his middle age, with thin greying hair and the look of someone who knows his best days are behind him. One eye seemed to have a permanent twitch, like he might have a nervous disorder or something. We thanked him for calling, and as he surveyed our living room and commented on the attractive beams, he accepted the glass of wine we offered him, and then sank into the comfortable armchair with a sigh of satisfaction. He looked like he was settled in for the night. Did this man speak to either of you?" he asked. "No," we both replied. "He just stared and leaned against that ruined oak tree by the fence." The policeman then questioned me as to what I did for a living and asked if I had ever had any connection with the church. This question was so unexpected that Jane told him I was currently acting the part of a vicar in the television soap. He even came home dressed in full costume the other night," she laughed. "I thought you seemed familiar," he snorted at me. "My wife would like to meet you. She is such a great fan of the close." "I would be delighted," I answered. "You can both pop around any time you like." "Just one more question," he said. "Has anything else of a peculiar nature happened since you took up residence here?" And so we told him about all the strange disturbances we had had, that were driving us crazy, and how we could find no logical explanation for the trauma. He scratched his head and said that all fitted in with the theory he was developing, and why he'd wanted to visit us personally tonight. Please don't scoff, many people do. but in my off-duty moments I'm chair of the Toddlington Extra Paranormal Society. I was quite serious when I told you on the phone that I knew of this house, but it is more through researching the paranormal than through police work. I believe the man you saw was nothing more than a very vivid image, a likeness, if you like, of a killer who lived in this house more than a century ago. It was Jeremiah Webb, who was hanged for the killing of his wife after a drunken argument. We do not have many interesting sightings of the paranormal around here, and so we are keen to act on any new appearances. Sergeant Barnsley took another sip of his wine and studied us both with a propriety air as though we belonged to him now. But why us? Why now? He produced a faded old newspaper. According to my archive copy of the Toddlington Argus of December the 13th, 1886, relating to the murder case in Melody Lane, Jeremiah Webb, a casual farm labourer, was hanged for committing a vile and dastardly murder by strangling his common-law wife with a red neckerchief. Right until the end, he claimed, it was the priest what done it. He was always preaching at us and lusting after my woman. According to the Argus, they never found the body. The policeman paused for effect and to let this sink in, and then continued. So, I believe that when you walked up the path in your dog collar and religious vestments, you triggered it all off again. The mischievous poltergeist waking you up in the night, the banging on the wall, and the apparition by the tree. You are so lucky, my friends. You got a bonus when you bought this house. It's haunted. He pondered further, and I'll bet my pension the body they never found is buried out there, hidden in the roots of the ancient oak that the stranger was leaning on. He has been trying to tell you where the body is buried, but you didn't understand. What you need, my friends, is a real priest to come and exorcise the evil once and for all. It all made a kind of sense. But how come my laptop came into it, I asked. Oh, well, you see, sir, everybody thinks the only way to communicate with the other world is through mediums. But the spirit world has moved with the times. We get some startling results now with our audio-visual equipment. The spirits use the internet more than we do. He concluded, well, sir, since I believe no crime has been committed, I cannot help you in my police capacity, but I would advise you to have that old oak tree removed carefully and to check the ground beneath it. The website pop-ups you mentioned could be redirecting your thoughts to that particular spot. What you said about visiting the blind tree. The following day, I rang the police station to thank Sergeant Barnsley for his help and to say we had decided to remove the tree as they advised. The girl on the line said, "Hold on." She came back again. "Sorry, sir, we do not have a Sergeant Barnsley. We have never had a sergeant of that name. You must be mistaken." But he originally took my call. He came to see me. He belongs to the Toddlington Extra Para... No, sir. I remember quite clearly. You rang off before we could find someone to speak to. Good day, sir. And she rang off.